Hello, my name is Nathan Allen, and today I'll be guiding you through the use and function of hip-hop in venues with different levels of intimacy. We'll start with free underground events with no more than 40 attendees, compare to a show at a general admission venue, and work our way up to a major mainstream show at Madison Square Garden. However, before we can begin observing the application of the art form, we should at least be a little familiar with its general characteristics and personality, so the contrast is more evident. Well, let's get to it!
Hit it! Come on, y'all! Oh, yeah!
So what is hip-hop? Simply put, hip-hop is poetry typically written to rhythmically fit bar measures in 4/4 time signature so that it can be spoken or performed over a repeating beat. The evolving culture has a historical influence on the lyrical content, beginning with club party jives, later promoting assertiveness and establishing oneself as an alpha male, and eventually opening up to critiques of culture and society and essentially anything creative enough to entertain listeners. Lyrics are valued based on rhythm complexity, syllabic rhyme quantity, and poetic craftsmanship or cleverness. Assessing value of lyrics adds an atmosphere of competition among performers, as we will see in certain venues. So now, let's see how hip-hop is exercised, so to speak, at an intimate underground local venue. I found out about Kingdom Cafe through a friend and followed the date through an event on Facebook. There was no charge for admission, it was very informal, the room was dimly lit, audience members were seated at tables or standing off to the side. Anyone could come, sign up on the list, perform, and leave at any time. There was almost an air of bribing people to come spectate because it's not a popular scene. Complimentary snacks were even offered. If any backing tracks or beats were used, they were played through an MP3 connected to the monitor. Between performances, the host of the event would introduce the next performer. Each performer was offered a microphone, but some, like the next performer we'll analyze, preferred not to use it for more freedom to express themselves. Watch how Sotorios, a local Connecticut rapper, takes the floor at Kingdom Cafe, an open mic event in a church basement in downtown New Haven. I began filming a little late, but you can hear he gives some background information on the piece he's about to perform.
All 10 of them, whatever, how many we do have, through marketing and consumerism and sex and violence.
Like many lyricists in the underground scene, Sotorios uses hip-hop as a platform for expressing his socio-political views and critiques. Right before he starts, he announces that he'll be performing it a cappella. This verse was actually part of a song, but in an intimate venue, rappers enjoy not being confined to the structure of the beat so that they can emphasize parts that they normally couldn't stress without going or falling off rhythm. Sotorios also opts to not use the microphone so that he can have his hands free to aid with nonverbal communication. Speaking directly to the audience without the aid of an amplifier also creates a more real and rugged atmosphere. All these performance techniques call the listener to attention and understanding the message being conveyed. Notice how even though there is no beat or music, there is still rhythm in the way he delivers. Also notice how about after 8 bars, the girl in the center sits up and remains up for the rest of the performance. When a performer starts, audience members tend to take a casual approach until he says something that really sparks their interest. In addition, other members start vocally expressing their astonishment, snapping their fingers and saying things like "whoa" and "hello." This kind of vocal appreciation also helps to spark more interest in the audience and stimulate energy in the room. Notice how throughout the rest of the performance there is enough attention attained from the audience that the crowd is actually speechless, whereas at the beginning there was subtle rumble of whispers. Finally, at the end, the audience gets the opportunity to liberate all the energy and excitement that's been building up while listening to the performance. Now let's quickly look at some other elements of hip-hop expressed at another venue of the same intimacy that we won't see in higher class venues. This is a cypher that was held in the Molten Lounge at UNH. Also no admission fee, open seating area, and freedom to come and go. In a cypher, rappers take turns saying or improvising verses on the spot while a DJ plays a looping beat and scratches to transition between each performance. All the performers stand in a line, nodding or swaying to the beat as a way of giving support and confidence to whoever's performing. Rappers also make gestures similar to Sotorios to help emphasize and communicate their punchlines and verbal images. This is a competitive atmosphere. Almost all verses communicate pride in oneself and the lesser significance of all others. Every performer is hoping to come with a verse that will get the audience to respond with the most astonishment. When spectators hear a line that they think is really clever, they shout things like "woo" and "oh," similar to at Kingdom Cafe. What we're about to see here is not typical, but is a good example of the competitive nature in hip-hop functions where unfamiliar rappers share a platform. Two performers go to perform at the same time, and what results is a tug-of-war battle for the floor. Both contestants face each other and simultaneously rap improvised verses and make gestures aggressively directed at each other. This continues until one gives up and stops rapping. Audience members express mixed feelings of embarrassment, shock, and entertainment. Overall, this creates an atmosphere of unpredictability which generates lots of amusement in fans of intimate hip-hop. Now let's take it up a notch. I went to a show at Toad's Place in downtown New Haven featuring hip-hop artists Wax and Watsky. It cost me $20 for admission, which is standard for venues of this intermediate intimacy level. Since this was a show with followers rather than spectators, the atmosphere had a stronger energy. Fans showed up before the doors opened so they could stand as close to the stage as possible, unlike in more intimate shows where audience members casually sat at a comfortable distance. Unlike in the previous shows, there was no seating room, except for a small pub area off to the side. To show love and appreciation, fans pumped their hands at the performer in sync with the beat, usually pointing or throwing an open palm. Notice the full band as well as the more prominent role of the DJ. At Kingdom Cafe, the DJ did little more than hit play on an MP3 player. In the Cypher, the DJ played a backstage role, simply creating transitions and keeping the smooth flow of the performance. As the band begins warming up to get the crowd energized, the DJ acts as a hype man, shouting things at the audience and making an elaborate introduction for Wax. Notice how Wax shouts at the audience to maintain that energy. As he raps, Wax uses similar gestures seen in the previous venues we looked at. Whereas Sotorios casually stood in one place and delivered at a relaxed volume, Wax runs back and forth across the stage and yells his lyrics with energy. Stage lights change color with the beat. Although the function remains, hip-hop has exchanged its use in this venue. In the lower venues we were watching showcased poetry and competition. The audience was relaxing and listening for lyrics that communicated messages of particular interest. Here in Toad's Place, lyricism still functions as a vehicle to communicate similar messages and astonish listeners. However, it has now dropped the competition and acquired a stronger use for sensory entertainment and individualization. Performers use hip-hop to keep the audience excited at all times and create a party atmosphere, whereas in places like Kingdom Cafe, a different kind of energy is created and appreciation is kept on a more introverted level. Finally, let's look at hip-hop used on a mainstream level. Tickets to this Ed Sheeran Rizzle Kick show in Madison Square Garden were purchased through Ticketmaster. To enter the arena, a fan must have purchased a $50 ticket online ahead of time, whereas tickets could be bought at the door at Toad's Place. Purchasers then opt to have the ticket printed or shipped, bring that ticket on the day of the show to have scanned by an employee, go through a security and baggage check, and finally search for the specific seats assigned by the ticket. Notice some fundamental consistencies in the performance. Ed screams at the audience to make some noise before a performance. The prideful lyrics that we observed in the Molten Lounge cipher are still used. Body language is used, but not so much to aid with lyrical communication. Notice how cutting the beat and rapping a cappella to stress points is still in effect. The audience is a lot less sparing with their cheers. Competition is irrelevant. Rather than waiting for particular lines of interest, the audience screams and cheers essentially whenever it feels right. Hip-hop maintains its function for the artist, but the use is almost purely for show. In conclusion, we see as intimacy is lost, the use of hip-hop to stimulate thought in the listeners is lost in exchange for energy stimulation. Conceding that it depends on the listener, on a mainstream level, hip-hop is less of an exposition and more of a novelty or a sideshow talent. Fans come ready to say the words along with the performer rather than hoping to hear something new and better than what they've heard before. Lyricism is a versatile art, and its uses are endless. Thank you for watching.
Scream it out. You need me, man.